Hello, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about this book. It's called Adèle. It's written by Leïla Slimani, and this one was originally written in French. It was translated into English by Sam Taylor, and it was something that I read for Women in Translation Month in August. And it's a fairly quick read. I read this, I think, within 2 or 3 days. I don't really remember, but yeah, it was a quick read. And I just kind of want to say a little bit of something about this book. First of all, I didn't particularly enjoy this book. And I usually make a single book talk about a book if I like the book, but I don't know, maybe today I'm just in the mood of, I'm in a bit talkative mood, so I kind of want to talk a bit about this book. I wasn't, I didn't really enjoy this book, but I must say when I first started reading this book, I was really intrigued. So Adèle is about this woman who is a sex addict. She lives in Paris and she has a husband and she also has a child, a toddler, and she works as a journalist, and she feels like her work is kind of unfulfilling, and she has this like big secret. She's a sex addict, and she would usually sneak away secretly obviously to have some a bit of sexy time with various men. So she would have all of this tryst with different men in Paris, and she would work really hard to not let her husband know about her secret life. And so this book is about how she's dealing with that, how she sort of juggles with the kinds of struggle that one would have with sex addiction. And I think it can speak a little bit about the experience of what someone has with addiction as well. Not exactly addiction towards substance use, but more like addictions that are based on actions. So it definitely shows that, and the kinds of I would say measures that the person with the addiction would take in order not to show it to other people, to their loved ones and all that. This book would also show us the kind of fallout that happens due to Adèle's secret life. Now obviously I'm not going to talk about that because it's spoilery, but yep, there is a fallout. It has to it has to have that. Anyway, when I first saw this book, I was interested with its promise of a character with addiction, and I personally think that I like reading books with characters with addiction because in a way I can sort of relate a little bit to what the character is going through. And I was really interested because it shows that this the character in this book has some kind of sex addiction. I don't have sex addiction, so I wouldn't really know what it would entail, but the addiction part, it is very intriguing, and I'm really interested to see how the author handles the character. And I feel like to a certain extent the author does a nice job in showing us how Adèle as a character would be really struggling with her addiction and in her daily life, just trying to juggle her addiction on top of her work life and also her family life as well. So she kind of has to fit in that kind of thing, that extraneous element into her life, and it's not a healthy element, but you could see the struggle that she has. And I would say that while showing Adele's addiction to sex, it doesn't really show much in terms of Adele's own personal, herself being, pushing back on, or resisting the urge for that addiction, which I think is kind of like an interesting way of telling a story about addiction as well, because people don't necessarily resist it. But yeah, I feel like the way that this whole book is constructed, it's kind of disappointing, because in the beginning you have all of the setup, or something that I would feel like a setup, in which we see Adele engaging in sexual relations with multiple men. She would go to all these hidden sexual escapades with these men, and it feels like these are set up towards a fairly big payoff, because you expect some kind of fallout, and that would give you some kind of payoff. But what happens towards the end just didn't really feel satisfying. Everything just sort of happens. You get a lot of sex scenes in the beginning, and then something happens, something big happens to Adele, which sort of shifts the course of her life in a way, and after that it's just it just falls flat. And so that was why it was kind of frustrating to read this book a little bit also, especially when it got to that part. Another part that was kind of frustrating to me was how inexplicably the shift of this book pretty much turned from Adele to Adele's husband. Now, obviously, Adele has been doing these secret things with other men at the beginning of this book, or at least in the first 50% of this book. And we also get to know a bit about Adele's husband, who is kept in the dark. And in a way, this book has an interesting way of making you feel like you want to root for Adele, even though you know that she is highly problematic. And at the same time, it sort of wants to make you root for the husband as well. But something that happens later after the fallout, you don't have those feelings for the husband. You may or may not still root for Adele, because this is still her story after all, but I don't think you're gonna have much sympathy for the husband, which is kind of strange, because first of all, the shift in focus to a different character, it's weird. Like, why is the husband suddenly become like a main character later? And the kinds of feelings that you have towards the husband, suddenly you have strong feelings, you have strong emotions towards the husband, who is a side character, or supposed to be a side character all along. But anyway, I just didn't really enjoy how it treats, the theme of sex addiction, at least at the back of this novel. It just didn't feel very satisfying to me. It just feels like something is hanging, and yeah, it's just, and also something that I just kind of, I'm not sure if those of you who have read this book would feel this way or not, but while I was reading this book, it seems like addiction is sort of treated as some kind of a condition, a strange condition. It's framed like a strange, sort of exotic condition, especially sex addiction. And I don't feel that sex addiction is treated with sympathy in this book. Maybe this book doesn't want you to sympathize with Adele, maybe it wants to, but I don't feel that sex addiction is treated as with compassion. And I have a little bit of problems with that because I feel like addiction in general requires a little bit of compassion from those who don't have addiction. And there's a bit of something that kind of comes across to me as a bit ableist in this book. So yeah. My thoughts on sex addiction in Adele is just kind of, it's not satisfying. The story is just, it's not resolved well. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Leïla Slimani's Adele, and I think this is her first novel in French. I think I might be wrong, and many people like Lullaby, which is actually her later work in French, but I think that was the one that got translated before Adele. Again, I might be wrong on my info, but I think that was what I read. So yeah, I am interested in Lullaby, and if you have read Adele, let me know what you think about this book. Maybe you have a different opinions, maybe you have, maybe some of my opinions resonate with you, or if you are interested in this book, I would still suggest you to try and see for yourself if you're going to like it. So I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye.